Okay, come on in, guys. I won't make you do a wheelie, don't worry. I did that yesterday. It's like, cool. Right there. Can I pray really quick?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes.
God, we're confused.
I have no life. No life anymore. How do I get help? How do I get help? That's what I'm asking you. How do I get out of this damn place?
Did not create us to live like this. This is not how to live.
I want to go home. Can you get someone to help me to go home, please? Please. I want my home again and my puppies. And to be happy again. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't take it. I can't take it. It's horrible.
God, please come. Please come quickly. You know these guys?
No. Were you guys the ones that honked?
What are you guys doing?
We're making a video. We're trying to find someone.
We gotta go.
See ya. Dude, you're in the streets.
Picture a scenario with me. You're driving home from work, or school, or the grocery store. You're not downtown, but you're close enough to still be in the city. You approach a stoplight. As you get closer, the light turns from green to yellow, and from yellow to red. You slowly ease onto your brakes. As you do, you notice a man out in front of you. He's standing on the corner of the intersection, alone, on your left-hand side as you approach. He's looking at you, or maybe not. His clothes are dirty. He's holding a cardboard sign, one you've seen in the hands of several others on a variety of street corners.
It's about to turn green.
His eyes look for yours. You're the first in line, so in a few dozen feet, he'll be able to reach out and touch you through your open window. You hesitate. In a matter of seconds, your relaxing ride home has turned into a mental dilemma. As you shoot quick glances in his direction, trying to assess the situation, you're hit with a barrage of questions. First, they're surface level, practical, action-based. What should I do? Should I pull up to the crosswalk? Or should I stay back and leave some room between us? Should I roll up my window or leave it down? Should I make eye contact? Should I give him something? Is there anything I could give him? Then the questions dive a level deeper. Who is this guy? Why is he here? How did he get here? Is he here every day? Does he really need my money? Or is he just gonna use it to buy drugs? And deeper still. What is my moral obligation here? Am I supposed to help him? Is anything I do just going to make things worse? Am I a bad person if I ignore him completely? I can't give money to every homeless person I see, so I have to ignore some, right? What am I supposed to do?
Here's my prize, the Black Widow. Isn't she lovely? Yet so deadly. You know, the thing I love most about her is their inborn need to dominate or to possess such power and dignity.
I want to talk about today my journey and also about the homeless program here, pros and cons.
I can't even tell, maybe 4 weeks. My mind is just not working properly. I know that.
The very first thing I decided to do to relieve this tension in my mind is what any other person would probably think to do. Begin serving at their local homeless shelter. A quick note, the place I chose wasn't your average food shelf. It was the mecca of all Arizona shelters, St. Vincent de Paul on Jackson Street. In a city where the chronically homeless literally flock to, even from other states. Today, I'm starting my investigation. My investigation to discover how people become homeless and why they can't seem to get out of it.
Some people say I got a lot of talents, but an example, I was...
That lousy husband that's there, I gotta divorce him, get him out of my house.
Right before I came here, I lived in Fountain Hills, had a pretty good job, and then I go back to homelessness.
The Black Widow, performing live for the first time at St. Vincent de Paul.
If you scan the gym, there's a lot to take in. Looking across the rows, I notice an empty seat. I walk over and sit down. In hindsight, I really don't know why I did that. She said hi, breaking the awkward and unnerving silence, and introduced herself as Felony. There was nothing in her appearance that particularly distinguished her from the rest of the 600. Her hair was messy, her clothes worn out, all her teeth were missing except one in the front. She just had this endearing aura to her. I didn't see despair or anger in her eyes like I did in the others.
So, my first question for you. Matt? Or
King Yo-Yo.
which one?
Which one wants to interview me the most?
Matt.
Okay, so we need to talk to Matt. Then we can talk to King Yo-Yo. But it depends on where we're at. We could say King Yo-Yo, King Yo-Yo with the little peace signs going on. So what do you want to know about being homeless? I'll tell you what we want people to know about being homeless, and you tell me what you want to know.
Okay, why don't you start with what you want us to know?
It's a tragedy that people are homeless. When you're growing up, you don't want to say that I want to live at the corner of Extension and 8th. You say I want to be a doctor, a lawyer. You don't say I want to be homeless and don't have to pay any rent. You want to have a big house with a picket fence and, the whole 9 yards, little flowers in the yard and kids. You don't think that you're going to be homeless and living in a park and having people throwing things at you and calling you names and spitting on you because you're homeless. That's not what you want out of life. You want other things, but sometimes things just pull you down. There's nobody out here for you, except maybe your friends and your street family that you have out here, and that's all that you've got. But you still miss your real family. It's nothing like having your parents or having your kids in your life. Now I get to talk to my daughter every once in a while, but I haven't talked to my oldest son for 5 years. And every night I wonder, did somebody tuck him in? Is he okay? Does he think about me? Does he love me? Does he understand why I couldn't go back to get him? I wasn't able to be a mother my entire time out. And there's a lot of regrets that go with that. It really just sucks not being able to know where your kids are. You don't know where they are, how they are. And I'm the type of parent that couldn't imagine not spending one moment not knowing where my kids were and not letting them know that I love them every day. Being involved in their lives, hearing about what they're doing. I don't even get to hear about what my kids do. I love my children very much, and I wish they could not see me in this situation, but I wish that I could at least see them. And not being with them is the worst thing that ever happened in my life. That's the worst tragedy out of all of this, is not being able to see them and be a part of their life. My name's Felony, and that's Barch. And we have been homeless for, well, we've been, this time around it's 3 years.
Okay, my name is Ron Friesen, and I'm the chaplain for the homeless. And what we do is we provide spiritual services to the residents.
When I talked to Chaplain Ron, as I now call him, he'd been working at St. Vincent for about 6 weeks. But those weren't his first 6 weeks of homeless ministry. He'd been here before. 25 years ago, he had this same job. He said his burden for the homeless never left.
I've always had a burden for the homeless. Most recently, my burden has increased because I'm also a mental health counselor. And for the last 6 years, I've been working at St. Luke's Hospital with the mentally ill. And a portion of our clientele are people who actually live here at the homeless campus, at the Human Service campus. I have a real burden about that because part of my Christian conviction and faith is, the least of these, as Jesus says in Matthew 25, the least of these, they need justice and service. And so to me, it's absolutely abominable that here are people who, because of no cause of their own, they're mentally ill, and now they're homeless. And our society is dropping the ball. And to me, I really want to address that issue.
So right off the bat, Ron wanted me to know that mental illness is clearly a contributing factor to homelessness. But you may be thinking, not every homeless person is mentally ill. You're right. This isn't just a mental health problem. And Chaplain Ron would agree. Although they make up one of the more noticeable sections of the homeless demographic, according to Ron, the mentally ill are actually part of the minority. They're part of the 40%.
Here's the good news. The good news is that 60% of the homeless in America are homeless less than 30 days. That's the entire country. So when people think about how can we help the homeless or how do we help the homeless best, we can think about, wow, we know that 60% of them are going to find a way. They're going to find a job, they're going to get established and find a support system, and they're not going to be homeless. This is the good news. So then we have 40%. So who are the 40%? And the 40%, I'm going to tell you, are veterans, elderly, and seriously mentally ill. Those are the 40%.
For pretty much my whole conversation with Ron, I was wondering, as you might be too, so which group does Felony belong to? Although I wasn't quite sure of her age, she didn't look elderly. If anything, I thought she might be younger than she looked, as life hadn't been too kind to her physical state to that point. She wasn't a veteran, or at least not that she told me. So does that then mean she's mentally ill? She definitely didn't fit my preconception of a mentally ill person. She was funny, charming, intelligent, but still, I knew my perspective was limited. Maybe she was a part of the majority, the 60%. I hadn't known her for very long, and she had mentioned she was close to getting her housing voucher. So maybe she'd be off the streets in a couple weeks.
Bye, Tiffany. Bye.
After that first day I met Felony, I would see her twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday morning. I'd wake up at 5:30, take the college van downtown, pull into Jackson Street, headlights illuminating and scattering the pigeons, and we'd begin our routine. Slap on a name tag, wash hands, unfold the tables, set up the chairs, and open the doors. Every time, without fail, Felony would wander through. Never last, but never first. And like the time we first met, she was always eager to greet me. It was almost as if the food shelter was her home, and I was one of her guests that had come to dine with her. She always greeted me with warm hospitality, and away we'd go into story-filled conversation. And every time, before I knew it, breakfast was over and it was time to leave. For me, a college student 1,500 miles away from his hometown, Felony became like another family member, a sister, or a mother, or maybe that favorite aunt. the one you go to for conversational relief at awkward family gatherings.
I.W. King Yo Yo.
There we go.
There we go.
She made my time volunteering honestly feel more like a privilege than an obligation or a duty. She was the story I wanted to find behind the cardboard sign. She reminded me of something Chaplain Ron told me when we talked.
As I walk around here, that's what I noticed. I noticed that the people who come here are they're great teachers, and we have to have ears to hear.
Little by little, week by week, my confidence with Felony grew. As I listened to her stories, I became comfortable enough to ask the questions that still stuck with me. But there was one glaring disconnect that still remained between her story and my conversation with Chaplain Ron. I needed to ask Felony, where did she fit into Ron's 3 categories? Or did she not fit into them at all? And if not, why was she still here after 3 years? I made up my mind. I'd ask her on Thursday, and later would be remembered as the day Felony disappeared.
This is the last place that I saw Felony. This is where I dropped her off, and she had friends back here, and this is where she sleeps, is behind this dumpster. So I dropped her off here, and then I left. I haven't seen her since.
Hey Matt Chase, how's it going?
So I got a hold of Felony's housing supervisor. She looked her up in the system. She told me that she doesn't think she's moved into a home.
Is there a possibility that she did?
There's a possibility, but she said it's not likely. If she did move into a home, it should be in her system, and it's not.
Wow.
So there's a good chance that she might still be on the streets.
Well, now we need to know why she didn't take advantage of it.
I know, and that's the weird thing, because it doesn't make sense to me, because I saw her on a Tuesday night, and then the Thursday morning she just wasn't there.
I think we should sit down together, Matt,
Okay.
and see if we can find any police reports or any type of recent information.
There's an elephant in the room, and by now I'm sure you've noticed it. If Felony isn't her real name, then what is it? Heather Boyles. I found out this piece of information organically, in conversation with Felony as our friendship grew. When she mentioned it, I wanted her to tell me more about who she really was, and where she really came from, and why she really was here. But in a moment of hesitancy, not wanting to cross any boundaries, I let the opportunity pass. It wasn't for nothing, though.
Jail information, how can I help you?
I have recently lost contact with a close friend of mine. Her name is Heather Boyles.
I'm not, even without a date of birth, I'm not pulling anybody up in our system under that name.
Okay, well that's good to hear, so we appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. Have a good day.
You too, thank you. Bye. Okay, so we know Heather's not in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
That is good. All right.
I was relieved to hear that Felony wasn't in jail. I didn't want her mixed up in a dangerous situation on the streets, but nobody needed her in jail either. She was too nice for that, too innocent, too kind, and caring.
She has gone missing?
Yeah.
Next, we drafted up a message for Heather's Facebook friends. As we did this, I wondered what they might think when my messages reached their inbox and they read through it.
I think you could really be of help. What should I say?
On top of that, what they might feel.
And point me in the right direction.
Yeah, just say help me. And hit it. Perfect.
Hi. How can I help you? Yeah, I called in here earlier today. I'm looking for a friend.
I couldn't remember what it was called, But during one of our breakfast conversations, Felony had told me about a local motorcycle shop that she regularly frequented.
Can I show you a picture?
Let me see.
Okay.
That's where my street family works, she had told me. I'm with HA, an acronym for the infamous biker gang, Hell's Angels.
Show it to Joey.
Okay.
Hey, Joey.
They're everywhere, she whispered to me. They're even in here, she said, rotating her fork in a wide, ominous circle. They're on assignment, protecting me, protecting others. They have a whole list of people to protect. I wanted to ask her why HA would protect homeless people, but I had a feeling I knew where that conversation went. Drugs. Given their insubordinate entrepreneurial intentions, I imagine that HA recognized St. Vincent, Jackson Street, and the blocks beyond not as a place to avoid, but rather as a place to embrace. In retrospect, I think I pushed a lot of this out of my mind. As a coping technique, a form of denial. I didn't wish to see Felony as a drug dealer. I didn't wish to see her as someone who banged out nick and dime bags for the Hells Angels, stopping by their clubhouse on the weekends to restock on supply. But now, I was being forced to face that reality. If it meant me finding out where Felony went, I would have to set my emotional biases aside and allow truth to eclipse my denial. I would have to accept that Felony, as sweet as she was, did have a dark side to her.
Motorcycles.
Doors open. Wow.
So I'm at St. Vincent every Tuesday and Thursday, and I used to see her every time.
Hey.
She's here. She's here.
She's here?
Really?
Cut her hair. She got white hair or blonde hair now.
Really?
Same dog.
No dog.
Dog's not here anymore.
She was using it pretty heavy before she left.
What's her DOC? Yeah.
Meth, but a lot of people have gone to heroin out there.
Yeah.
I know that at the time her old man was using needles, and she didn't like that very much, but she was also complaining of being unable to get high, and they would fight about it all the time. So I don't know, what she might have graduated to.
What's your story? Where does it start?
My story starts a long time ago. I veered off the path and it didn't have anything to do with my family for a while before I became homeless, so I didn't have that resource or support that some people have. I'm out here in Arizona all by myself. I left a domestic abuse situation, so I have nobody but my kids out here. I got married, had another child. We had a wonderful, 20 years together, and he got sick with cancer. I had worked for MCI. I had been one of their top sellers. I had saved enough money to sit there and be able to pay for his chemotherapy and rent for quite a while after he got sick, because I just wanted to spend our last days together and be there for him. And he ended up sick and passing away in hospice months and months later, and Access wouldn't pay for the chemotherapy. They wouldn't pay for anything that he needed, and all those things came to me. It came to be my problem and my thing. I had to pay for everything. And when he passed away, he died on December 2nd. I had paid my rent on December 1st, and it was the rest of the money that we had, and we were concerned that we weren't going to be able to give our kids a Christmas because it happened right before Christmas. And he was like, we just used all of our money for the rent. I didn't think about the fact that I might need it for a place to stay. He passed away December 2nd, and they wouldn't refund any of my money for December. They gave us 6 hours to move out after he passed away. So I ended up in the street with 2 of my boys and my daughter, who was pregnant at the time. We found places to stay, hotels, pay-by-the-week hotels. We did that for a couple of weeks. And then it became that my daughter went into early labor because of the death of her dad. And I couldn't afford the rent anymore. I had no more money. This was just like a couple weeks afterwards because Becky was born on December 22nd. They took my daughter and her baby to a foster home and took my one son that was still with me to a group home, and that left me on the streets, not knowing what I was going to do. And I got rid of all of my belongings. I thought that I could put them in a storage, but that didn't happen. So I lost everything that I had the day I lost my kids, I lost my dogs, I lost my house, I lost everything that we had.
Call me gullible, but when Felony told me this story, I didn't question it. I believed it. If it wasn't her coherence of logic that convinced me, then it must have been the heartbreaking tear that rolled down her cheek. She really did seem to be recounting an unapologetically raw and painfully visceral, true chapter of her own life. In my mind, all of it was unquestionably real. But after visiting Tent City and meeting Darlene,
What's your name?
Darlene.
Darlene, good to meet you.
who disclosed with us the surprising details of Felony's drug addiction,
She was using it pretty heavy.
Really?
First stop.
my blind faith in Felony's alibi immediately deconstructed. This narrative of a victim
A lot of it was through no fault of my own. My husband died.
suffering from the oppression of random, unforeseen variables lost its grip. And in its place, a new story emerged in my mind. One where the hero wasn't just the victim, but the villain, too.
If you were to lose someone on the streets of Phoenix, like how you'd be able to find them?
Go homeless.
Go homeless?
Yeah. Just think of the things that they enjoy or that they need the most to survive.
What are you up to tonight, man?
I was trying to get a few dollars together, stuff like that. Got a bite to eat.
Are you using any drugs tonight?
No.
No black, no glass.
What is that?
CO2 cartridge. People inhale it.
Excuse me. How are you? I'm looking for a friend who's homeless.
Her name is Heather Boyle. She goes by Felony.
She used to sleep actually behind the dumpster here.
Yeah.
And her name is Felony. Don't recognize her?
I don't at all.
Okay.
I've heard of that name.
I've seen her before.
You've seen her?
Yeah.
Really?
I haven't seen her.
All right. When was the last time you saw her?
Probably a month ago.
A month ago?
Yeah, 4 days ago.
Really?
Walking right there.
Yeah, she has white hair.
Yeah, I seen her.
Yeah, I saw her today.
She's in Mesa. I saw her yesterday.
You
You
did?
saw her yesterday?
Yeah, she's in Mesa.
Where in Mesa?
Pause.
Pause.
De Cristo, Broadway, and Maine.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
That's a place like this where they feed and also where they clothe and stuff like that.
Okay, appreciate that a lot. I'm Matt.
Josh.
Good to meet you, Josh. All right, guys.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Okay.
You too. Yeah, I got over there now.
This is Paz de Cristo right here. You want to head over?
Are you the band?
Oh my God.
Felony.
Are you the band?
I'm so glad I found you.
They had people picking people up. They threatened us. They threatened to kill us. They told us if we didn't leave, they were going to get us. And they chased us all the way here. I mean, this is where I came to when I left. I came right here that night. And we've been staying at the park ever since.
Have you been back down there?
I was just that one time. And all of a sudden, whoosh, there's like 5 or 6 of them walking with me up towards the gate. And they physically made me stop in front of that gate. And they had those chains and they had that hammer. They took my biker that was supposed to be watching me. He tried to be out there for me, and he went to go to the grocery store, and he was supposed to be right back. He never came back. He came back a week and a half later, so drugged up he didn't know where he had been.
Wow.
As I would come to find out, these predators, specifically targeting the homeless, have a name. According to Felony, they call themselves Midnight Productions.
Midnight Productions is a group or a lot of people who are paying money to see videos of women and children mutilated, killed, raped, and they're preying on homeless women because they're never missed. Most homeless women are never missed.
When's the last time you've been here?
2 weeks after my brother died.
How long ago was that?
He died in August. So it's just been in August.
Felony and I are in Cortez Park. It's sunny out, but the mood is gloomy.
I loved him so much. I always look for something, some clue somebody missed, something, anything, because they weren't even looking for somebody to be hung.
For context, Felony's talking about her street brother, not her blood brother. His name was Haas. According to Felony, Haas was trying to put an end to Midnight Productions. And when they found out, they murdered him. Right here in Cortez Park. We're standing in front of the tree he was found hanging from.
They just tried to say he committed suicide and didn't. We all know that he didn't.
At the time of Haas' death, Felony explained, Midnight Productions was already at large.
We stayed in this one right here, the top Cracker Jack box house. We started off staying in that front house up front. And then for some reason, he moved us to this house here. That house, primarily, I was never, ever allowed in. I went into that house once, and we lived here 4 years.
Felony never told me how she ended up in that tiny house. I tried not to ask her too many questions, as I could tell it was hard for her to relive. What I do know is this. A few years ago, Felony met a man named Marcel at the Paz de Cristo shelter. According to Felony, Marcel worked in the yard. She called him a likable guy who went out of his way to help you. But what Felony didn't know is that Marcel had an alter ego, a different job, working undercover for Midnight Productions.
And then here is where his workers would stay, and they've got 1-bedroom apartments, wood flooring. It wasn't so bad for them.
After gaining her trust, Marcel somehow lured Felony and her kids. I don't know what he said or promised Felony, but whatever it was, it convinced her to confide in him.
He was just somebody that was there that cared.
Before she had time to recognize her mistake, she and her family were trapped. Literally.
Were you allowed to leave?
No.
Was the door locked?
He had a padlock on the outside of the door, and if I would have tried to go like that window is something that I tried contemplating on trying to get out many times. I only got out once, and when he caught me, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't even worth getting out there. So I made my life of being there in that little cracker box house with my kids, and just was content with that.
How long were you in that house for?
3 years. I mean, I can remember they would do something behind this house. There's like a little space back behind this apartment thing. They'd burn things, and, I'm pretty sure they were probably burning evidence back there,
So they burned evidence back there, and then they also dumped stuff at the...
Yeah, at the railroad tracks or at the canal, or, you know, things that might look like a homeless camp, you know. Is there somebody coming?
No.
Are you sure? Because I heard footsteps. Okay. They could get you. If they think that you're close to finding out something and exposing them, they're going to get you. And
What do you mean?
they're going to kill you. They're going to find you, they're going to kill you. One person could die, but the 30, 40, 50 people that are in the upper ranks, and they might even make a film out of it to make an example out of you, to show what it's like to the people that do investigative reporting on them. I mean, that's the truth. And I don't want you to disappear. The world needs you, Matt.
Thanks. The world needs you too, Felony.
You are destined for something great. We're gonna get Trump out of office. I'm not joking.
Yeah, what were you saying?
I said they don't care what happens to people, because half of these people that are, you know, oh, this and this happened to me, and, you know, they were so bad. They were lightweight bringing girls up to the heads of that whole group with Midnight, and we're selling them off for drugs and money and all that good jazz. Girls as young as 13, 14-year-olds, even younger.
With me are acquaintances of Felony, people she said could give me more information about Midnight Productions. The first is Jackie.
I'm from a small state. I never thought I'd be through anything like this. We've got people that know my name, that roll up in RVs.
The second is Junior.
And it's taken a toll on my dad, because he's been through it already on his own when he first came up here, and now that I'm up here, he sees that I'm going through it and it's so much worse. And honestly, he's told me this is the worst it's ever been in Arizona since he's been here the last 5 years.
Like Felony, Junior had also been imprisoned inside of the Mesa house on West Mahoney Avenue years ago. And also like Felony, Junior had managed to escape.
How'd you get out of the house at Mahone?
I took a dresser and I smashed the window out, and I jumped 2 stories. Fell on the ground. Just missed a big-ass water pipe, too. Got up, went to the hospital, fractured my shoulder. My shoulder's still messed up. Messed my shoulder up. That's what happened. I said, now I just got mugged. And I never went back.
How did you get free from this place?
My husband came back and he pretty much saved me and my kids. He demanded that we come with him and started a bunch of fighting and screaming and yelling with him. My friend Robbie, who was from HA, he was there, and he told him that there was no question about it. I was coming with them. And there was a lot of screaming and a lot of yelling, and I just remember him telling me to get down in the truck with the kids, and no matter what I hear, just stay down. They would come get me, and I was scared, and they put me and the kids in the truck, and the next thing I knew is we were driving out, and Marcel never came after me.
It's a waking dream. You open your eyes, look around, it wobbles, you go back to sleep. Wake up, man, because there's a pain in my arm. They're giving me an injection. What the fuck you doing to me? I'm tied down halfway. And then I try to take off, and motherfuckers try to shoot me downstairs. Pulled a pistol on me. So I started fighting with them. Marcel come down, grabbed me up with a couple of dudes, took me back upstairs. When you play like you're knocked out, and you can actually just stomach what happens to you, to see what happens to everybody, I seen exactly what's going on. Human trafficking, man. Big lucrative business. That's why I said, what do you think they make off prostitution and drugs? Billions in a year.
Is Midnight Productions still going?
Oh yeah, it's just a sliver. It never stopped. And I can't say no really no more than that. Do your research.
Does your mom know what you're doing? I gotta ask, I'm a mom.
No.
Okay, do me a favor. If it starts getting tense or hairy, let me know so that I can get the angels on it. The angels are here to help us, and they will help you. They'll protect you. They like what you're doing. They knew about our trip out to Cortez Park, and I didn't even have to tell them. I said, guess where I was? I went to the clubhouse. I said, guess where? And they were like, we're working on letting him come to the clubhouse. As long as you leave your camera outside the gate, he said. And they were laughing at me. And he was like, I know you want Matt to be able to come. I said, we're having a cookout. I want him to come. And he goes, it's coming. He says, we're learning to trust him because we see that he's, really trying to do all this help. And they went back behind us and asked every person what we were talking about. And I didn't even know somebody was there. I had no clue, no way of knowing somebody was there, but they went and asked him. And he's like, we're learning to trust. We have a little bit of money to eat on, guys. You can get sandwiches from Burger King for a month. Why? Is everybody in and accounted for?
What's your name and how long have you been on the streets for?
Brian, and I've been on the streets probably on and off for 8 years, 9 years. I've known everybody, just I've been under the radar.
He's a local meth dealer.
I'm a salesman.
And apparently, a reliable source when it comes to all things conspiracy and predatory tactics. The agenda? Listen to everything Brian had heard, learned, and experienced about Midnight Productions. And for Felony and a couple others tagging along, maybe smoke some crystal meth.
We had a little meeting about Midnight Production the other day.
I know. I heard about it.
We've been surveilling one of their properties. I was with somebody the other day who knows where the house is at. So right now there's people watching that house. They don't know if it was just a house they used to do that night or if they're still continuing to use that house.
There are girls out there. Everybody's still getting bothered. I mean, a van pulls up, you're wondering what's going to fucking happen. You wonder if they're going to give out food or are they going to put you in the van. And, there's a lot of people out here that have had encounters and we need to talk about it because we're all afraid of the unknown. We have to stop them.
Yeah, the problem with what we're running into is there's a lot of them.
There's a lot more than what you know.
Right.
There's thousands of them, and they're all in North Phoenix. They prey on people that have nobody.
Yo.
And they're here.
This is one of the reasons I was just telling you about. I can't stand seeing a woman on these streets right now. Cannot stand it. It's dangerous right now.
They pulled my daughter. They sat there and they had my daughter, and she was in the park. And she was about to go with them. And my daughter would have been beaten and raped. And what's to say that they wouldn't pay good money to watch a film about my daughter getting killed? Because she was who she was.
Right.
We had to fight for 3 years to get out of there. And Junior is somebody that stayed there, and he's a survivor. And we said we would look back on that one day and realize just how strong we were. And we both survived. We're both here.
Hey, Darlene. Remember me?
Yes.
Yeah, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. So, wondering if we could interview you.
Tell me what the subject is.
Could we go under the light and interview
Tell me
you?
what the subject is.
It's about Midnight Productions.
It no longer exists.
No longer exists?
No, that was a legal issue that was handled years ago. But because it's still like a folk story out here in the streets, people are going to want to cure their curiosity. And that's all it is. It's a myth.
That's really good to hear.
It is.
I'd like that to be the truth.
It is the truth. Step back, you guys.
Who played?
He's gonna get what he deserves. That kid right there. He stole and he
These
lied.
people are protecting me.
That's right. They're protecting my belongings. They're protecting my safety. This makes me feel safe. They're thieves. If the cops aren't running us around telling us to move our stuff here and there.
That wasn't a good sound.
Dude, that was a gun that went off.
They're running over there.
Yeah. They're probably gonna try to find us. Oh, they're working on it.
You can tell me every day, all day long, till you're blue in the face that there isn't a Midnight Productions. I know there is. I know different and I know better. The police are involved with Midnight Productions. They don't look into anything that you give them as far as information goes. And, you know, if it's a homeless person, they just write it down, a homeless person died. With that book that my dad has, I've got addresses, I've got days, times. Hey, it's Melanie. Is Randy there? Like I said, there's like 6 different houses that are listed in that book. He needs to pull in and talk to me. That's the only way he's going to see me. They're still doing what they do. And they're good at it. All right, I'll wait. Bye. Randy! I'm coming to you. You know, I really don't have any, you know, my kids are gone, my husband's gone. And if I could do one good thing in my life, stopping Midnight Productions would mean everything to me. When I went through Marcel's things, I wasn't sure what it was, but it all matches up to the different houses that they had and how much money each house made and how many people they took in that month versus how many people left. The unaccounted for, I don't know if they're dead, alive, if they're still in Midnight Productions and they became management, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of bloodshed by the time this is done. I'm going to need a few minutes to talk to him alone, and I'll get the book from him in just a minute.
Ever since the start of this whole journey, I've made a habit of hitting that record button whenever possible. I wanted to make all of it concrete and accessible. For fun, for safekeeping, but most importantly, for documentation.
There we go.
At the end of all this, I wanted to create something that shed tangible light into this fascinating culture, a world that's so often overlooked. So, on that night Felony met with Randy, we went through our usual pre-interview routine. I turned on my mic, handed it to Felony, and without thinking, she took it and stuck it to her chest beneath her shirt. By that point, the wire had become as normal to Felony as her shirt or her jeans. I knew we were being sly, and a little bit risky, when Felony walked up to Randy with the hidden mic. And I'd assumed she knew too, but looking back, I don't think she fully acknowledged the situation. Later that night, again, out of routine, I opened up my laptop and skimmed through the 2+ hours of recording, looking for the conversation that paused. The moment I heard Felony greet Randy, I stopped the tape, then hit play.
Hi.
And to my surprise, nothing on that recording bore any resemblance to Felony's account of her meeting with Randy. There was no mention of Midnight Productions, and no inquiry about the book. As I cross-referenced the recording with Felony's documented account of the conversation just moments afterwards, it was completely different.
All right, Felony, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So yesterday, Randy came by.
Yep.
And you had told me that you were gonna ask him about the book.
Yes.
And after you talked to him, you told me that you did ask him about the book.
Yes.
You had a microphone on you. And last night, I listened to your conversation. And you never asked him about the book.
Hi. How are you? What you doing? I'm gonna have to go tomorrow. I have to go to the hospital. I'm dehydrated, throwing up all over the place. I was locked outside and couldn't get in anywhere. But when I get done at the hospital, you want me to call you?
Yeah, you can. How you getting there?
Huh?
How you getting there?
I got the lady in here is going to give me a ride. She's my friend. She's going to take me to the hospital, make sure I get seen right away.
You know my number?
Yeah. Yeah, I got
call
it.
me. You're gonna have cake and ice cream tonight.
Cake and ice cream?
Yeah.
What kind?
Yellow cake with buttercream frosting.
Did you make it?
No, April did.
Okay, cool. What kind of ice cream?
Chocolate chip.
I-
It's her boyfriend's birthday, so she made it.
It's Preacher's birthday today, too.
Well,
Imagine that. Piece of shit. Sorry, nobody's on my list of favorites today.
cool.
All right, I'll call you as soon as I'm done. They're going to make sure I get in, so it shouldn't be too long. Okay?
All right.
I love you.
Yeah, just call me when you're done.
Okay.
I'll come pick you up.
I love you.
I'm sure we're gonna have cake and ice cream tonight, and I'll make you breakfast in the morning.
Breakfast in bed? That sounds amazing. I love you.
While I'm in bed, I'll make you breakfast. I love you.
That's a new thing for us. I don't think I've ever seen you at breakfast time.
Yeah, you have.
That must have been a long time ago.
Like 8 years ago. Give me a call and I'll come pick you up.
All right, I love you. Well, that was a flop. He's gonna go get the book. He didn't even bring it with him. And then he says he'll come pick me up whenever I want him to. He doesn't care about me at all. He knew what I needed and he didn't help me get what I needed. I was given to him for safekeeping so that I could have it when I needed it to try to help everybody else. And then he invites me to a family function that I'm not even a part of that family. He's got his own little family. He doesn't need me. And that kind of sucks. Because I wanted to show everybody that the Aryan brothers have families and they give a fuck. And he doesn't give a fuck about me. He used to tell me that I was just something that didn't get swallowed. And I really believe him on that. When he said that, I think he really truly meant it. And that broke my heart when he said it. But I didn't think he really meant it. But his actions are showing me different.
I don't understand why you lied to me last night.
But I didn't. I asked him about going. We have certain setup things in case of an emergency, in case you need to talk to him. I couldn't tell him. I didn't feel comfortable with telling him that I was on a microphone. We already had enough fighting last night. And, you know, a lot of things that were said that probably should never have been said. But he just, you know, we don't talk straight out in the open. We weren't talking out in the open because we don't say things straight out a lot of the times. He doesn't want to talk about the book in public, especially you don't know who's sitting there watching you. And it's not being paranoid, it's being safe. We've spent extensive periods of time making and spending time coming up with ways that people don't know what we're talking about, because there are people that could be sitting across the parking lot and reading your lips. There's people that could, there's a lot of things that could happen. I mean, it's dangerous. We used to refer to cutting up our dope as a party or a family gathering. I told him I was going to go to the hospital, which was my camp, and he said he would pick me up, and I said my friend was going to take me home, and he has the book, and he was supposed to drop it off in the middle of the night. He never showed up at where we stay at, because it's in the middle of town. I don't know if he just didn't get out or what, but he didn't give me an explanation this morning.
I've had a couple friends that have struggled with meth addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the symptoms they have is paranoia.
Right?
Did you want to eat this?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever struggled with paranoia?
Every single person that gets high that knows about Midnight Productions, there's no way that they could all have come up with the same things, the same people, the same rituals, the same places.
Can I ask you a few questions for clarity?
Yes.
Do you really believe that there is a Midnight Productions?
Yes, I know there is.
Do you really believe that you were a victim of Midnight Productions.
Yes.
I visited Felony a couple of days later, and her mood seemed to be somber.
Hey, Felony. Hey, Felony.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right?
You okay?
She looked sad, bummed out, disappointed, I assume, by the recent turn of events. The intervention, the confrontation, my refusal to believe her stories. It changed things between us.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Anybody want a felony?
I was still Felony's friend, and I had told her that. But I had also told her that I no longer believed her or trusted her, and that I was making the personal choice to separate myself from what I perceived to be the fictional imaginations of her drug-induced paranoia. That declaration, that brutal honesty, I think it stung.
That's really interesting. She's never been so lukewarm about seeing me before.
It also hit me, realizing that our friendship no longer stood upon a foundation of trust.
I feel like she's being more real with me though.
But even after our conversation, Felony seemed to stand resolute. She still clung to her conviction that Midnight Productions was real and at large, in the streets of Phoenix and Mesa, just waiting to snatch her up when the moment was right. To her, it wasn't a hoax. She was still just as convinced as ever that it really was real.
Someone's missing, you said?
Well, 2 people are missing. It was the 2 people that were talking about trying to close down the Midnight Production houses because of that girl that got hurt the other day. One got hurt, one got killed.
Felony is telling me about a new Midnight Productions abduction. One that had happened over the weekend. Unbelievable. In more ways than one.
We've seen her or her husband, so.
In a weird way, I didn't want to burst her bubble again, so I let the conversation drift. It was about dinner time. Felony asked if we were planning to eat with them, which was something I'd made a habit of doing.
Are you eating with us tonight?
So we came just to stop by quick.
But tonight, I wasn't interested in eating with them. I'd come to tell Felony that I was leaving. I had followed the story to the end of the trail. And with my school year recently concluded, I was ready to pack it up.
So we came to stop by and let you know I'm heading out tomorrow.
Are you really?
Yeah. I wanted to come and say goodbye.
You coming back after?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll be back.
For the next 48 hours, the amount of time it took me to weave through the highways of Colorado, Nebraska, and Iowa, on my way back home to Minnesota, I sifted through all of my memories, reflections, and introspections, from the first day when I met Felony at St. Vincent to the last day when I said goodbye to her at Paz. And by the time I pulled into my family's driveway, I thought I had it all figured out. I walked to my mailbox and retrieved a letter. From Ohio. Felony's mom.
Here's what the letter says. Hi. Thanks for writing and the photo. Heather did mention you.
Heather did mention you, but I can't believe most of what she says. Since you are working with the homeless, you must be aware that most are mentally ill. Heather is no exception. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She is adopted, and we have no background on her birth parents. Heather was a very small infant, but she survived. She left our home at 15 as she didn't like our rules, but mainly couldn't handle the fact that I had cancer. We had her in counseling, and our wise counselor said I didn't need to have to deal with Heather and cancer. She found her a foster home with a girl she had adopted who was childless. It was then that they found out how really difficult Heather was. So she then was placed in a mental health facility. One of many. She can't handle money, invents stories, lives in fantasy land, and seems to believe her own tales. I am not the one who damaged Heather before she was born. I am not the reason she was a very small, sickly-looking infant who was behind in her development and needed to be kept on soy formula until she was 11 months old. She didn't even have teeth until 11 months old, so couldn't eat solid food. Others even commented on how neglected she looked. So thin. So did she try to abort her and failed? We will never know, but something wasn't right. Heather needs to be independent, as we can't help her financially forever. Don't do much now, but I do hope she at least eats. End of my letter. Sincerely, Nancy.
There's a lot more in that letter than I remember from the first time reading it.
Yeah. It's just like a tragic account of her.
Yeah.
Very pessimistic and tragic.
I know. There's a lot there. It took me a long time to process myself. But each time I read it, even just now, one word seems to always rise to the top of my mind. Over and over. Trauma. The sad reality is many people living in Tent City are being hunted, but not by a group of rich elites driving around in unmarked vans. In many ways, the reality is much worse than that, because the real villain can't be silenced or put behind bars. The real beast is within.
So then we have 40%.
Turns out, Chaplain Ron was right.
So who are the 40%?
He knew it from the beginning.
And the 40%, I'm going to tell you, are veterans, elderly, and seriously mentally ill.
And the mentally ill.
Those are the 40%.
And to me, I think you can consolidate that even further. Ron even said it to himself in that initial interview when talking about veterans.
They put their lives on the line. Some of them even lost their mental health serving our country. And now here they're homeless.
And for the elderly, I have to believe it's largely the same.
My mind is just not working properly. I know that.
At the beginning of this journey, Felony told me that her homelessness had resulted from a tragedy, an unfortunate event or series of events outside of her control. Take a look around, she'd said to me that morning over breakfast at St. Vincent. As I scanned the gym, taking in the chaotic collage of homeless people waiting in line, eating, or already entering the grueling day awaiting them on the streets, Felony continued, "Everyone here is here because of a tragedy that has happened to them. But the bigger tragedy," she said, "is that no one will sit down to listen." These words pierced something deep inside of me. They had a real impact on me. They sparked a melody in my heart, a tune of compassion that, I think, ended up being one of my biggest motivations for wanting to tell Felony's story. I wanted to give her a voice, not just so others could listen and learn, but so she could be heard, so she could feel validated. If Felony's, or Heather's, tragic circumstances really were out of her control, an unlucky roll, a bad hand, then I wanted to bring that to light. I wanted to paint a narrative that redeemed her dignity. Through all of my documenting, research, and investigation, that's what I hope to uncover. And ultimately, it's what I found. Felony is a point of view, a perspective. It's a mask that Heather chooses to wear. Yes, it gives her more control over her circumstances and outcomes in life, but with control comes responsibility. And for Felony, responsibility means all of this is my fault. I'm the drug dealer who got myself hooked on drugs. I'm the mother who screwed up and lost custody of my kids. I'm the woman who deserves to be stuck on the streets. Felony chose to take control of her life, but in doing so, she also chose to take all the pain, trauma, and mess of her past onto her own shoulders. She chose to become a felon, the villain of her own story. Because sometimes, even villain is better than victim. When Felony looks in the mirror, she sees a villain. But when I look at her, I see another person. I don't see Felony, I see Heather. Heather was born into a tragedy. Before her life even started, the cards were stacked against her. She was sickly as an infant. Perhaps her mother tried to abort her, but failed. Regardless, her birth mom didn't want her, and that hurt Heather as deep as hurt gets. Heather is an honest woman. She lives life on the streets because that's how she feels. Ever since childhood, Heather has felt homeless. Felt like she didn't belong, like she wasn't wanted. Because from childhood, that's the message she was told. On top of that, her mental illness, forged by prenatal and childhood trauma, made it nearly impossible for her to learn, grow, and develop at a normal rate, which in turn made it very difficult for her to gain independence and thrive in life on her own. When life dragged Heather down, yes, she made mistakes. She found an escape hatch from her pain and got hooked on drugs. But when you read the full story, of course she did. Put yourself in her shoes. If you'd survived an attempted abortion by your birth mother, only to be given up for adoption after that, would it be so crazy to fall victim to mental illness as a result of the physical and psychological trauma? And if you took that mental illness and mixed it together with an unstable support system, would it be so hard to believe that eventually you'd end up on the streets? And if you end up on the streets, being mentally ill and largely unable to care for yourself, is it that unlikely that you'd end up in a bad crowd? And once you found yourself in that bad crowd, factoring in your mental illness, homelessness, and level of dependence, wouldn't it only be a matter of time before you found your drug of choice? Your escape from your unbearable reality? Your shift in identity? Heather became felony not because she is a bad person, but because she is a vulnerable human being, incapable of facing the evil, pain, and lonely darkness of this world. Some might say Heather was destined for brokenness, destined for darkness, destined to feel homeless, destined to be homeless. In the end then, how can I help is really the wrong question to ask ourselves when we pull up to the stoplight. What if, instead, we asked a different question? How can I love? In my experience, what felony could really use, what we all could really use, is love. Love is the food that feeds our souls, the water that quenches our deepest desires, the sun that makes life bright. Love is what holds us all together. It's what keeps us alive. If felony can't be helped, as tragic as that is, she can still always, always be loved.
It's a human being with feelings that at one time was productive, or maybe not one time was productive, but somebody that has feelings.
This is what I try to remind myself now when I make eye contact with a homeless person at a stoplight. When I see them there, holding up their cardboard sign, asking for help, I switch that word in my mind to love. How can I love?
You came into my life and changed my life, you know that, right?
They helped her to feel seen, to feel human, or in her words, humanish.
Humanish, it's the ability to have feelings. We all have feelings, and just because you're homeless doesn't mean that you're not human. We hurt, we laugh, we cry, we celebrate birthdays, we go to church. Just saying hi would work.
Now that I know the truth about felony, my role in her life is becoming clear as ever.
You're worth something, and you're worth everything to the people that are around you.
Her role in my life is becoming clear as ever.
Just keep being you and keep trying to help the other people that you live with, whether it's on the street or in the house.
Our jobs are one and the same: to remind each other not of our ailments, but of our shared humanity.
The Bible is full of stories of homelessness. Did you know that? The first couple was homeless. Adam and Eve. They got kicked out of the garden. They became homeless. The Bible starts with the human race in homelessness. But then the Bible ends in a home, right? In a beautiful garden where the trees bear fruit for 12 months, etc., etc. So then we end up in a beautiful home. So the story of the Bible is from homelessness to home.
Love you, Felony.
I love you too.
Love you too.
I don't know what you've been through.